Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, so what if the universe isn't just, a huge empty space with a bunch of random stuff floating around? What if it's more like a single thought that's still in the process of being born? Well, today we're going to dive into a pretty wild theory that says exactly that. We're taking a 10-step journey right into the heart of reality itself. And really, at the core of this whole thing is one big question. This explainer is all about something called the Sentient-Field hypothesis. And what it suggests is that reality, well, it isn't just matter and energy. It's actually a living, generative process that is, right now, actively becoming aware of itself. So to really get a grip on this, we're going to follow the theory's logical path. First, we'll start with its foundational budget, then we'll look at the engine that drives everything. After that, we'll see the consequences of that engine all around us, understand how it makes choices, and finally, we'll look for the proof, a mind beyond just matter. Let's get started. Our journey begins with the blueprint of existence, what the theory calls the universe's finite budget. So forget about the Big Bang for just a minute. This idea argues that reality doesn't begin with a massive explosion, but with a single, absolutely crucial number.
So the whole theory kicks off with this really radical idea. It says that reality has a finite budget for experience. There's a specific number of slots that allow things to be distinct from one another. And this budget, it's called the sentient quota, or just Q.
Now you might be asking, why does it have to be finite? Why is that so important? Well, because an infinite universe, from this point of view, would just be static noise. Think about it. You can't really optimize or improve something that has no limits. It's finitude, having that boundary, that forces the universe to get creative, to build meaningful, complex structures.
Okay, so how is this finite budget, this Q, actually divided up? The theory proposes something called Rademacher partitioning. The best way to think about it is like a perfect accounting system for reality. It's a super precise mathematical formula that divides the entire budget, making sure there are absolutely no glitches or rounding errors in the fabric of existence.
And this leads to something amazing about space itself. See, in this model, space isn't a fundamental container that things exist in. No, it's an emergent property. The distance between two objects is really just a measure of how different their configurations are within this universal field. Pretty cool, huh?
So we've got a finite, perfectly structured blueprint. But what brings it all to life? That brings us to step 4, the engine of meaning. And to get this, we have to wrap our heads around a concept called the Great Reversal. And I mean it. This is where our entire perspective on reality gets flipped completely upside down. All right, here's the big flip. Normally, we think of physics as being fundamental, right? You've got physical fields, and then maybe consciousness or order somehow emerges from all that complexity. Well, this theory says, nope, that's completely backwards. It argues that a fundamental drive to create meaning comes first. And the laws of physics? They're just the tools that this drive invented to get the job done. This drive even has a name, chi. You can think of it as this active, searching engine at the very heart of reality. It's constantly seeking the most meaningful configuration it can find, trying to strike that perfect balance between stable, coherent structures on one hand and the potential for new, novel ones on the other. So if this engine, this chi, is constantly running and optimizing everything, what does the universe it creates actually look like? Well, the theory says we should be able to see its fingerprints absolutely everywhere, from the beautiful things we see to the immense scales of the cosmos.
We do see its signature everywhere, in a number I bet you recognize, the golden ratio. Turns out it's not just a coincidence, it's a consequence of this deep optimization.
From the spiral of a galaxy to the shell of a nautilus, this ratio pops up over and over again because it's the most efficient way to pack information and to grow within a finite system. So in this view, beauty is literally a sign of mathematical efficiency.
Next up, we see this pattern of scale, and it's governed by this truly mind-boggling number. This constant dictates how reality builds itself up, layer by incredible layer.
So to keep growing in complexity without just breaking, the system performs what you could call a universal reboot. It takes a massive amount of complexity, we're talking 10 to the 24 units, and bundles all of it into a single new unit for the next level up. It's how you can get from subatomic particles all the way to galaxies using the exact same set of rules.
And this nesting, it isn't random at all. It follows a principle that's already known as Kleiber's law, a universal metabolic rate. The same math that describes how a tiny cell uses energy also describes how a giant galaxy cluster forms. It's all governed by the same deep principle of optimizing network flow.
The clear signature of a single mind figuring out the absolute best way to power itself at every possible scale.
Okay, so we have the blueprint. We have the patterns that emerge from it. But how does reality actually move forward in time? I mean, how does it make choices?
It's a two-part process. First, there's a smooth, continuous flow that keeps reality from just flickering in and out of existence. But that's combined with a second process, purposeful jumps. The field considers all the possible futures. It vetoes the random or incoherent ones, and then it snaps to the one that best preserves meaning. This is literally where agency gets written into the math. And finally, this entire chain of logic brings us to the ultimate claim of the theory. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's an experimentally testable prediction. It's the smoking gun. You see, standard quantum physics puts a hard limit on how strongly two entangled particles can be connected. It's called its Searleson bound. But this Sentient-Field hypothesis predicts that this limit can actually be broken. And why would that be? Well, because if the field is a single, coherent mind, it can create a tighter connection between its own parts than a universe made of disconnected, dead matter ever could. And this gives us a concrete number that we can actually go out and test in a laboratory.
And so the whole journey, from a single finite number, Q, all the way to here, leads to this incredible conclusion. The universe is a generative process that's constantly calculating its own meaning, and we, as conscious observers, are a part of it finally waking up to itself.
Look, this explainer just offers one specific, pretty radical perspective on reality. But whether you find it compelling or not, it definitely leaves all of us with a final question to chew on. If this theory is even partly right and reality is a mind, what is it thinking about right now? Thanks for joining us.